So we'll start off today with a grammar point, which is going to be a simple grammar point, actually. It's just about softening tone with n at the end of a sentence. So this is a character that you actually don't learn until about, I think it's like level 35 or something in the Mandarin Blueprint method, but it comes up a lot as a top-down word because similar to, say, ma or ba, or let's see, what else is there? That you put at the end of a sentence. There are these different tone creation characters that you can put that, they give a tone of suggestion, like ba, or they give a tone of a yes or no question, like ma, or there's another ma that's more like a tone of obviousness, like, obviously it's this ma, right? And then there's n, and n has the function of softening the tone of a question. Now, sometimes n can be indicating a present tense, but we're mostly going to talk about the softening of tone of voice because, of course, Chinese is a tonal language, but when we say that Chinese is a tonal language, what we mean is that on the level of the word, there are different tones, and they affect the meaning of the words. But that doesn't mean that there's not still tone of voice at the level of the sentence. And tone of voice at the level of the sentence is something we can totally understand as English speakers because we do that all the time. For example, I say, that's your coffee versus that's your coffee, right? Like, it's like by changing the tone of voice, I change the meaning of the sentence, but it's not necessarily like a tonal language at the level of the word like Chinese is. So this is an example of how you can change the tone of a sentence using a character right at the end. Now, let's first point out the example of where you can use n to indicate present tense. For example, 他在吃饭呢. Now that n at the end of the sentence indicates that she is currently eating. Now, there's also the 在 that indicates that she's currently eating, but both of them kind of in combination mean that she's eating at the moment. And the thing about that is that if there's a period at the end of the sentence, you can be fairly certain that this isn't the example of n softening the tone of a question. So in that case, you'll see that pretty clearly. And, sometimes you'll use n alone to indicate present tense, but often it's combined with either 在 or 这, which is yet another clue you can use to see if it's in that function. But let's focus on the gentle tone of voice that comes with a question. So here's a sentence from level 14. 他的儿子有什么看法或想法呢? What views or opinions does his son have, right? And so in this sentence, the question word is 什么. So 他的儿子有什么, right? And so whatever comes after it, we know it's going to be a question because we have 什么 in it and we have a question mark at the end. But if you just say 他的儿子有什么看法或想法, that sentence is perfectly fine. It's not particularly seen as rude, but if you want to come across as, nice, gentler, you can just pop on that n at the end, and this will give you the just a respectful sort of inquisition. You're just sort of saying, what might his views or perspectives be? And you're just trying to be nice about it. And that's really the only difference. Naturally, this isn't always required. So the use of n to make a question gentler is most common when the relationship between the speaker and the listener is less intimate, at least in China, right? So the better you know someone, the less likely you are to stand on ceremony, as they put it. So if you want to think of it as a simple rule, n at the end of a question makes things nicer. So let's take a look at another sentence here. This is from level 17. 你想打包还是在这儿吃呢? Do you want to take out or dine in? So this sentence, a further illustration of the above point. The context is that a host or a hostess or a restaurant employee is politely asking a patron what their preference is. And this is like not as intimate a relationship as you would have with, your girlfriend or something, right? And so the relationship is professional and therefore has a tone of being kind and gentle and polite. Let's take a look at another sentence. Sentence 3 is from level 20. 我这边很好，你呢? I'm all good here. How about you? So you'll probably hear people say 你呢 at the end of sentences all the time. And this person is almost certainly responding to something like 你最近怎么样? 你最近怎么样? which means how have you been, right? So after they respond, it would be redundant for them to say 我这边很好你最近怎么样 right? If you said that, it would be kind of like, why are you repeating the whole question? You can just say 你呢 to politely throw the question back to them. So whatever they asked you, by saying 你呢, you're asking the exact same question back. And it just saves time. It's natural for these types of things to develop in a language because, as I say, I mean, can you imagine that every single time that you asked a question and somebody wanted to ask it back to you, they repeated the entire question? That would get tedious, right? So bear in mind that this n to make questions softer is very useful in your early days of speaking Chinese, because if you're going to have a question and you want to make sure that the person that you're talking to understands that you're asking a question, because, you know, you're in the early days, you might have pronounced something wrong. Maybe you used the wrong word somewhere, but by throwing n at the end, there's no way they're going to be confused about whether or not you asked a question, because there's going to be a question word in there somewhere. You're going to say 什么, you're going to say 什么时候, you're going to say 谁, that meaning what time, and who, respectively. And so, that being the case, if you throw it in at the end of these question sentences, one, you're going to be polite. You're going to sound kind and polite, which is nice. And two, you're going to make it clear to them, even if you made a mistake, okay, well, they're trying to ask a question, so they might, even if you made a mistake, they'll understand where you're coming from and maybe ask for a clarification. So it's very useful to have there. And of course, 你呢 is super common. You're going to say that all the time. So bear that in mind as you move forward. So that is the grammar point covering the tag GW, tone of voice, n, gentle, 语气词. 谢谢你观看我们的这个视频. If you found this video valuable and you'd like us to help you reach fluency and literacy in Mandarin Chinese as fast as possible without all the headache of traditional learning methods, just head to mandarinblueprint.com to learn more. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell below to be notified every time we release a new video. And of course, 保重.